These grants then led to follow-on investment and job creation. New Mexico's job training incentive program has also stepped up with a new focus on startups, now providing a way for young companies like Ubiquity, a company built on New Mexico technologies, to hire local talent and to fill high-wage positions. In addition, the Catalyst Fund, a $40 million fund of funds built with support from the State Investment Council, private investors, and the U.S. Treasury will soon be investing in New Mexico-based technology startups. New Mexico really is astonishing when you think about it. We possess a dizzying array of ideas, research, intellectual property, and resources. Some of them are being showcased today. Julia Wise, who's the Science and Technology Manager for us in the Economic Development Department, shared an analogy with me that I think is right on target for this audience, and I'd like to share it with you. She described each of these new assets as like an organism with a unique environmental niche and history. Together, these unique organisms that have evolved out of world-class research and creativity are creating a community and building an ecosystem that can only exist in New Mexico. The Innovate New Mexico Technology Showcase brings attention to that tremendous potential within our ecosystem and strives to turn ideas born here into enterprise. So I hope you all have a really wonderful conference. I'll be with you for a little bit. Unfortunately, I can't spend the whole day here. I wish I could. It's always energizing to see how much goes on when all of you with great ideas get together and collaborate. I've been asked to do some introductions before I leave the podium, so let me start with Larry Ali, who's a member of the Technology Research Collaborative that's here with us this morning. We have a couple of representatives who are registered with Representative Ben Lujan's office, Patrick Duran and Jennifer Katishas. Oh, good, she's not here when I butchered her name, I'm sure, so apologize if I got that wrong. Also, Carlos Gutierrez is here, and Ted Pedro from the Business Development Agency. Hi, Ted. And then with Michelle Lujan Grisham's office, we have Elizabeth Ham and Stephanie Keynes, somewhere in the audience, and from Senator Udall's office, Bill Waldman, and then Katie Richardson from Senator Heinrich's office. Let's give them all a round of applause. Okay, thank you. Lisa?
Thank you, Barbara, for opening up our event in such a welcoming way. And I'm Lisa Putila. I'm the moderator for the first session. And we'll have three technology presentations. And we'll have about 15 minutes for each presenter. The presenter will make a presentation, and then our sharks who, if they would like to come up and sit at their table now, that would be great. We'll have an opportunity for a Q&A with each presenter. So we'll have two presenters from New Mexico Tech and one from UNM in this session. So I'd like to welcome Wes Cook from New Mexico Tech as our first presenter. He's going to be presenting on the Santoro block, the next generation of green products.
Thank you, Lisa. So, a couple of ideas here that I'd like to share with you. The first one is the Santoro block. The second one is kind of the next step, or some other ideas that we've brainstormed on. So municipal waste, if you stop and look at it, it's So what's collected in your trash bin? 27% of that is paper waste. That comes from newspapers, cardboard boxes, etc. And about 15% of it ends up going to a landfill. That's according to EPA. Now what happens to it is, this is some material that's essentially cellulose, or that paper waste. And we've decided, what can we do with this besides just put it in a landfill? Rather than taking money to build landfills, why don't we use this material to actually build something else? And so this is the idea that has been created. This material is brought to us by BioPropel. I'd like to thank them. They're a New Mexico-based company. They have a couple of facilities, one here in Albuquerque, one in Grants. This material came from Grants. So this is the Santoro block. This is taking that paper waste and turning it into something useful. Masonry type block, something with holes in the center where you can reinforce it. You can reinforce it so it's better than, say, Adobe. Is something that would perform similar to masonry construction, something you'd see a police station or a fire station built out of, as well as residential construction. The first question I get when I present this is, how's it doing a fire? It's made out of paper. I talked with my wife about this, and we joke about the fact that I'm going to start trying to build cardboard houses. And I get the question, well, how's it do with a fire? And I'd love to show you a video. I just don't believe videos do well in PowerPoint, so it didn't happen. But so you've got an image. This one comes from Los Alamos. This material doesn't burn. There's enough inert content that a fire will not hold. So there's some fire resistance to it. It'll be comparable to your stick frame buildings. Another advantage is the R value. You talk about U value, R value. This is talking about the insulation rating in your construction industry. How well does this material retain heat inside the structure? So this is a now sustainable material, right? Because we've taken recycled content to make a masonry block, and here it is with a R value that is above several others. So a solid masonry wall, if you were a grouted solid, has a value of about 2. If you use a different type of insulator, you can get it up to about 5, roughly. Adobe tends to be more 24 inches thick, so I scaled it down so it would be more comparable. So 12-inch thick is about comparable to what we're looking at with this Santoro block. It's comparable. I'd like to see more tests done. This is also done at Los Alamos. There's more work to be done here. So how's it being done in the construction industry? These blocks were cast by hand, and so that's one of the problems that we're experiencing right now, is we need some initial capital to really get this project going, to really be able to form a bunch of blocks. But this was a detached garage that was constructed up in the Farmington area. You can see here part of the construction. I've got a few more construction photos going on. This is here with the total height, with connections for the roof and diaphragm. And then how the finished product would be covered. This is simply plaster on the inside and stucco on the outside. And then, of course, the finished product. And it looks like an ordinary house. And this is made out of something that was supposed to go into a landfill. And instead of putting money towards the landfill, we're putting more money into cheap or affordable housing for New Mexicans. If you were to pull up a LEED certification and talk about what elements that it meets as far as criteria to be LEED certified, it hits several points. One of them being recycled content, and the second one is the R value. Those are the two biggest elements. There are a couple of others when you really start nitpicking them. But those are the main two. From here, we've talked about what else we can do. Well, we recognize that paper is one of the primary things that's going to a landfill, but there's another one, and that's also plastic. And so we've looked at trying to include plastic, and that's kind of a development right now that's underway, as how to include plastic. Oh, that one's about the third bullet down. How to use plastic inside this masonry block. Can we use it? What are the consequences? Do we keep the fire rating? Do we not? So those are questions we have to explore. One other idea has been this block, depending on getting the strength to the levels that you see comparable to masonry, is if you can't do it, one thing you can do is just use it as formwork. Now you've got somebody who's an inexperienced mason who can lay the brick, and then you fill it full of concrete and you have a building that's strong enough. So if all else fails, there is that option. There's some other things that we've seen with it. Its energy absorption is quite incredible, meaning this could be a blast-resistant type wall, something you could put up as a barrier, where concrete is very brittle. Once it breaks, it tends to fracture and splinter, fragment. This doesn't fragment. In fact, we failed some specimens and then taken the load off and then put the load back on, and they went up to about 80% of the strength that they were at before. Meaning it retains a lot of that ability to sustain load, even after failure, even after being crushed. A number of other items, temperature retention. We've talked about using this as an insulator. This could be not only wallboard, it could be used because it's lightweight. It could be used in shipping materials, etc. Oil absorption on waterways, that could be another use for this waste material. Packaging, acoustic fiberboard, all are within the realm of options for this type of ingenuity. From there, I've got questions. What's on your mind?
Can I start? That's a great presentation, Wes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, you're right. The first question I had was about fire resistance. So, I guess you don't have to worry about different kinds of fires. There's some that burn. But I guess every building material has a problem with that. So it's not fair to look at it much harder than what you do with a blowtorch there. That's probably great.
So that came from Los Alamos Labs.
Oh, well,
Okay.
even if I came from Los Alamos. So one of the questions I had was about, I guess, the cost to make. I know, probably like any manufacturing material, the cost goes down with the production, the bigger production, but the recycling of material, as a lot of times, it's not the cost of some of the material going in, and it's maybe not even the demand, but it's the conversion of it, right, from the material to the finished product. So what kind of process is that, and I guess how hard is that to scale? I guess that's my question. Scalability.
So, right. How well can we scale this up on production? So it's a bit of a difficult question to answer. We're looking at putting into a block unit right now, and it's been done before. Meaning we can actually take this material, put it into the hoppers that you generally use for masonry construction.
Oh, right. So repurposing the already existing equipment, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay.
And so the cost becomes quite comparable as far as the production cost is concerned.
You don't have to build a whole new plant or anything like that.
Right.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
But the additional advantage is now instead of pulling aggregate from a quarry, you're pulling aggregate
Yeah.
right from that waste stream.
Cool.
Have you had a chance to work with architects and builders to try to understand how you go about getting adoption or traction, if you have the scale?
How do we get it adopted?
Yeah, how do you get that specified in? I mean, how do you get people to actually buy it? Let's say you've got production and you've got your brochures and everybody's buying what they always buy.
Certainly. So